off when we come on.
Hello, and welcome to episode 81 of the SheGulls podcast, powered by Albion Obsessed, the one and only podcast dedicated to Brighton Hove Albion women's football team. I'm your host, Duncan. As if you're watching on YouTube, you will be able to see on the screen right now. And if you're not watching on YouTube, then,
you won't.
Make an appointment for Monday nights. That's all I'm saying. And I'm joined today, as always, by fellow Albion fans, Ben. Hello, Ben.
Hello, Duncan.
By Aby. Hello, Aby.
Hello, Duncan.
And by Claire. Hello, Claire.
Hello, Duncan.
And as always, we are joined backstage by producer Joe, who'll be pressing all the right buttons in all the right places. So we're kind of back on the road again, back on the bandwagon. The WSL is back in action as of this weekend. We obviously had an away fixture, so that's what we're going to be talking about first here on part one of the SheGulls podcast. And then obviously we have a new signing to talk about, a player who has gone out permanently to another club. So that will come up in part two, unless we run short. And obviously any other chats, reports, loans, etc., we will come to, as I say, in part two. So yeah, might as well start as we mean to go on with the Villa result. Myself, Aby and Claire went up to Villa Park on Sunday. We had a lovely time on the way up, lovely time on the way back. The game itself, well, we'll come to it. But needless to say, if you haven't seen the result, I'm sure almost all of you will have by now. But we did lose by 2-1, which made it all the more cold and all the more chilly on the way back. So, yes, the lesson about that better. But I think we should go to Ben first. Ben wasn't in attendance, but did watch diligently, I'm sure, on the television. Yeah. So, Ben, give us your opening sort of gambit on the Villa game yesterday.
Oh. Well, I sort of agree with Dario on this. So this sort of immediate post-match, we sort of gave the points away, didn't we? Because we dominated that game for like 90%, and then just gave away 2 goals in less than 2 minutes, and that's it. But other than that, we were just like the dominant team for sort of at least sort of 70 odd minutes of the game. But it just that thing again, we can't turn pressure into chances and chances into goals. So and then I suppose we'll go through we're going to go through the goals one by one later on, or just. So we can do.
Yeah, just give what did you think of like the would you have argued that we should have won the game, or do you think probably a draw might have been a fairer result? I mean, obviously, it matters not, but obviously they did hit the post a couple of times as well, which did also against us at home when they weren't able to score. So it kind of was a bit weird. My actual match review hasn't come out yet, but I'm sort of talk about it in there about the fact that in both games it's felt like we've had control, but they had the better chances, like specific opportunities. Like we've had pressure, we've had shots, we've had everything except the kind of clear-cut chances. And even our goal on Sunday, which we'll come to, was kind of their making, or somewhat of their own making, rather than of Brighton's making. But obviously we played a part in it. We'll come on to that. But would you have said like maybe a draw would have been a fair result, or you think we should have had enough to kind of go on and dominate that?
No, I think we should have won it, because I think just the amount of play we had, and the amount of play that the amount of time we were basically in their third of the pitch for so much. And I think the stats kind of. I think the first half stats were weirdly even, but the whole game stats sort of kind of bear that out. But like I said, it's just as we discussed on several times, we haven't got that sort of focal striker, and so the pressure that we have doesn't really get the sort of it gets to into the box or whatever, and everyone's not dithering, but there's not that sort of focus, and so while we have good pressure and we have a lot of touches in their box, we don't end up getting a lot of shots, which obviously means you don't get a lot of goals. And so here we are again. We got a good one in the first half, and then we'll come to the goals we conceded, but we should have been outside by then.
Yeah, I think that's what it felt like. Was that, I mean, I'll obviously come to you guys in a minute, but I did think at half time 1-0 it almost felt like half a goal to nil almost. It wasn't. We weren't far enough away. We didn't make enough of our pressure and stuff in the first half, because they felt quite panicked in the first sort of 15-20 minutes, and they grew into the game, but they were still not 100% on it, I think, until probably they at least came out in the second half. They probably got a bit of a telling off, and maybe a bit of tactical advice and direction and stuff at half time, which obviously helped them. But yeah, you can never rest when it's 1-0, because especially away from home, that next goal is so crucial. If you get it, then it effectively stops any momentum that they're able to get back. You're 2-0 up and it's the second half. But equally, if they get the 1 goal back, then it starts to feel like, is that next one coming? And it's kind of, it's hard to fight against the tide at that point. Aby, do you think we should have scored more in the first half, or do you think it was a case of, we were knocking on the door, but as I say, they did hit the bar and post, I think, in the first half as well. So, I felt like 1-0 was a fair score, but Aston Villa weren't completely devoid of ability, were they, in that first half?
No, I think the first half was as it was. They rattled the woodwork. We scored, and I know a lot of people say, well, it was the goalkeeper's error and blah de blah, but we were pressuring. Fran was there, Maddie was there. It's what Claire was telling them to do the entirety of the match, is put pressure on the goalkeeper. And when we did, she made a mistake and we got a goal out of it. So, I think, yes, it was a goalkeeping error, but we helped her to make that error, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then it sort of went back and forth and this, that, and the other. And it was a good enough first half. We weren't particularly upset. It's just that something happened in the second half and they forgot that they knew each other, forgot that they had a plan, and started running around like headless. I mean, they, particularly on 70 minutes, once those 2 goals had gone in, they just lost all shape and started running around like headless chickens. And everyone tried to win the game on their own. And it's a team sport for a reason. I don't have too many complaints about the first half, except I kept getting dripped upon, which was why I moved back. But it's something strange about these overhangs, that they don't overhang you to actually protect you from the elements. So we just were dripped on. I didn't like it. But other than that, the first half was pretty decent. But then the second half happened, or didn't, from our perspective. And it was that thing of, we got 2 goals in quick succession, and it just killed the game. And we couldn't come back from it. I don't necessarily think that Aston Villa won that game. I think we lost it.
Yeah,
well, they handed it to them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of one and the same, isn't it? It's not forcing them to have to play really well to get back into the game or to win the game. It's kind of being the architects of your own downfall. Would you say that's a fair assessment, Claire? It did feel like, you may wish to agree or disagree, but it kind of felt like the first game we played against them, but with goals, in that we probably felt like we should have won, and we were probably the better team, but they actually were the ones who kind of rattled the woodwork and kind of had maybe the clearer opportunities, you could argue. Would you say that's a fair assessment?
I think it's just been the same issue we've had most of the season, where it doesn't really matter whether we turn up or not. We've got nothing up front. We've got nothing to pass the ball to. Nobody's making any moves. The players you ask the player to just, if you do your job, that's all you should need to do. If everybody does their job, they should all be fitting together. But we've got people that are not able to do their job because they're doing a different job to fill a space. because it was never filled from the beginning of the season. And it's just a bit, it feels like an uphill struggle, that even when we do get a bit of momentum, even when we do get a bit of a luck and get a goal ahead, we just don't have it in us to keep going and have that person that's going to, you know, cause problems in the box and maybe nick us another goal that settles our nerves. And then as soon as we've come out in the second half, we just seem to have this thing. We've done it 2 or 3 times this season and last season. We just lose focus for that first 5-10 minutes of the game in the second half. And suddenly you're gone from being ahead to being behind. And like Aby said, it was headless chickens after that for 20 minutes. And then the last 10 minutes, they finally got it together and they were, you know, attack. But again, we've got Caitlin Hayes up front. Like, how are we in a position where our best defender's on the bench for the game and then she comes on as a central attacker? That is just, I just can't get my head around that. I can only assume she must have had a knock in training or something, which is why she didn't start, because I just don't see how you leave her out. And with the, you know, she's been our best player so far. And yeah, to put her, if, you know, you need a goal and you need something, and that's all we've got is to say to Caitlin, can you see if you can get your head on something if we have a corner? And we don't have very good set piece plays anyway. So, I mean, that's a 50-50 chance anyway. So it's just very frustrating, I think, not just for us fans, but for them as players, that, and for the whole squad and for Dario as well, that, you know, it's just an uphill struggle all the time.
Yeah, it sort of feels like, and I think you can almost sense it a little bit in the players themselves, where we go a goal up and there's almost not necessarily that faith that we're going to be able to hold on to it. And it feels like a bit of deja vu from a couple of seasons ago, where we were sort of saying, and then once we do concede, then it feels like it's only going to go one way from there. And it almost feels like the players feel that way as well. You know, that when it went to 1-1, it didn't feel like the players went, right, that's kind of angered us, that's fueled us, we're going to go up the other end and score. It felt like they went, oh, for God's sake, don't let another one in. And I know that not every player is going to feel like that. And, you know, maybe that's just, you know, sort of wishful thinking on my part, but it just, you wanted to see some fight back after that goal goes in. And then not only is there kind of like it doesn't seem to be a fight back, we immediately concede another one.
Yeah,
which
there's
kind
just
of
no reaction.
confirms, it confirms for all the players who was thinking, oh no, we've conceded one, I hope we don't concede another. Well, you just have. And
it's just so weird because, like you say, that was exactly how it was a couple of seasons ago. And then the beginning of last season, it wasn't like that. It was a case of there was a reaction. The minute things went against us or we let a goal in, there was a reaction and we'd come out and we would get the goal back. And that first half of the season, we were unstoppable and we were unplayable a lot of times. But then after Christmas, it was like the second half of the game yesterday. Something just goes wrong and we started losing games and then we could never get it back round again. And that just feels like how it's stuck. And I don't get it. It doesn't make any sense because we've invested in the squad. We've got a better squad defensively. And there, you know, nobody can moan. Yes, we've lost the game and results haven't gone our way this season, but we've not lost them by huge amounts. We're not being battered. Defence has worked really, really hard to make sure that we still got we're on 0 goal difference, aren't we, at the moment? So it's not negative. But to start the season, one player out, you know, down on the squad, one player injured and is out for the rest of the season by the sound of it. So that's 2 players down on the squad. And then we lose a player halfway, you know, through the first half of the season. We have 3 players down on the squad and they're all attacking players. They're all attacking. We've got 3 attackers in our squad. And that's not enough if you want to be, you know, ambitious and going for 4th. You can't have a squad starting the season like that.
No, that's right. It feels like you're on a hiding to nothing from the get-go, really, doesn't it? And if, you know, every striker, every attacker is going to go through peaks and troughs. I think probably more so than you would get with midfielders and defenders. There are going to be times where players don't score, and then you need to have other options, to either give them some competition or to give them a break or whatever it may be. But we were light anyway, and then we just got lighter as the season went on. And I think we'll come to that in a little bit, I guess, what we would kind of need to do and what the kind of issues were. But let's go through the goals before we do anything else. I'll come to you, Aby, for the first one, because I think you spoke about that a little bit already, and I agree with you. I think it's half and half. It's good pressing and good sort of attacking defense, as it were, to anticipate where the ball might go or where someone might make a mistake and intercept that pass. But also the player has to pass it there in the first place. So it's it requires the two elements to make the goal, sort of thing. It requires the goalkeeper to not just hoof it clear, which, we've had plenty of times where we've just begged our goalkeeper to hoof it clear, and we've ended up passing it to the opposition. That's something we're very familiar with. But equally, if you're not pressing the goalkeeper, if you're not making them make quick decisions, then they've got all the time in the world. They don't need to make that pass in the first place. So I think it's a sort of there's two elements to it, and they came together, and that ended up with a goal, and that's a positive result from what we were trying to do, which was press high. But it just felt like, I don't think it was immediately after the goal, but as the half wore on, it felt like the press wore off. And then that was when Villa started to come back into it. Like I said, I still don't think they were at 100%. I still think, Brighton were doing enough to sort of fend them off for the most part. It was mainly counter-attacks they were getting. And, like I say, they did hit the bar and post. So they were having some success with that. But in the second half, it almost felt non-existent, particularly after we go down. We can see those two goals and go down. Villa at that point could kind of sit back and, absorb the pressure. And that's where we don't tend to do well. So, Aby, what were your, you just expand a little bit on the first goal. What did you think of Sonoda, her game, how she performed in the actual game itself as well?
I thought she was one of our best players. When she came off, I was like, that, what? I was very surprised. No, she did really, really well because, yes, there was an error from the goalkeeper and the ball came to her. But she still has to collect herself, get it onto the correct foot, and then bang it into the goal. And she did all of those things, and the goalkeeper could have saved it, but she didn't. So I think it was a very well taken goal. And the more I see of her, the more I want to see. I think she's just, a little bit of a pocket rocket, to be honest. She's just brilliant. I'm very, very impressed. She showed great composure. It was her first start, and 11 minutes into her first start, she got her first goal. And I know somebody else who did that for the Albion, who's Kiko Seiki. Now she overachieved and got 3 goals, but we'll let her off. But yeah, it was, she started, she did really well. Very much like Venegas, looks like she's been in there all through the season. And I knew it was her first goal, but when I was rewatching the highlights and somebody went, "Oh, that's her first start," I was like, "Was it? Oh, yes, of course it was." She just looks like she's been there all the time. So very, very impressed with her. What you were saying about, the rest of it is on the highlights, they sort of immediately start with that goal. So obviously nothing else happened for the first 10 minminutes, except we were eating chips and coffee and so on. But immediately after on the highlights, the next play is one where Villa rattle the bar, and you can see that as Villa are moving forward, they're quite wide. And then there's this gaggle of blue and white shirts sort of in the middle, not really sure where they're meant to be and what they're meant to be doing. And that's the sort of thing that concerns me so early in the game, because the first half was our better half. But I don't know if it's that people don't know what their job is and what they should be doing. So is it a setup that's not quite clicking, or the players aren't doing what the setup is? I don't know. But it just... it sometimes looks like we are not playing the same way as the other team. Villa, when they push, and I've seen this a few times this season, when other teams have played against us, they've been able to really move forward quite quickly, and sort of come back at us, and we don't seem to be able to do that quite as well. But that was a lovely goal, and I hopefully we will see many more. And if you get a hat trick next time, that'd be lovely.
Yeah, and I said before, I think I might have even said last week that I think with someone like Sonoda, she has to play for us to be able to see how she's going to do, whether she's going to be a long-term option for the club. And I think given that was her sort of WSL debut, I would say she's put a big tick in the box of like being ready to start and to play. I think we were all a little bit shocked that she got taken off because she was performing a function that we haven't had for a long time and that we've discussed many times on the podcast, which is kind of being a disruptor. Not necessarily, she's not going to play sort of 50-yard cross field balls. Maybe she can, but she didn't. But I think what she is going to do is break up opposition attacks, be able to track back quite well. I think I likened her before to like an Owen Hargreaves type player. You sort of feel like they don't necessarily excel in one particular area beyond the fact they're just incredibly dedicated to trying to get the ball back and give it to someone else, or indeed keep it themselves and make something happen. And I think actually that is a really underrated attribute, is you don't need every player to be able to play a pinpoint 50-yard crossfield ball. You don't need every player to be able to take incredible free kicks or corners or whatever, but you do need a good range of people who are able to do all the jobs. And that's one where I feel like for a long time we just haven't had that. We've spoken about Maisie in the 6 and whether I think we all feel like she'd probably be better in the 8, but that's what you want a 6 to do, right? You want them to be busy around in front of the defense, nicking the ball back, making tackles. When Rachel Daly's trying to push you, you give her a little shove back and all that sort of thing. Manu was doing that to her, which was great. But Sonoda was like nipping in and kind of like getting in areas and stuff where she could get in a little sneaky slide tackle, or just kind of, if they'd miscontrol it slightly, she'd be right in there, really alert to win the ball back and stuff. So I think she had a really promising debut, got a very well deserved goal. Like you say, she did have to finish it off as well. She could have hit it straight at the keeper and she didn't. She put it, to her side and powerful and everything. So, good on her for keeping her composure, because I think, I think 99.9% of us would have just snatched it either straight at the keeper or over the bar or something. So congratulations to her on her first goal, and thoroughly excellent performance. And, perhaps in retrospect, we're assuming she wasn't injured or anything, but perhaps in retrospect, it might have been better to keep her on. So moving on from the first goal, I'll come to you, Claire. So let's talk a little bit about the second goal. So we're moving into the second half now. I think it was maybe about 15 minutes or 20 minutes into the second half.
57 minutes it was.
There we go. 57 minutes was the first goal. Very nearly the second goal as well. But Rosa Kafaji gives away a bit of a needless free kick on the edge of the area, and then Claire sort of take it from there.
I mean, to be honest, I don't think I even really noticed it, because it was just happened so fast that you're just almost sitting down and enjoying your chips still from half time, and then suddenly they've scored a goal and you're like, oh. And it's just depressing. And it's bloody Rachel Daly again, isn't it? And it's just like, it's so frustrating. She's a pain in your backside that you'd want in your team. Do you know what I mean? Like, let's face it. But I thought for the most part that Vegas dealt with her the whole time. Manu treated her exactly how she treats players. Manu was giving her a little dig. She was getting in behind her really close up. She wasn't giving her any space. To the point where you could see it was annoying Daly, because she was complaining to the referee about it every 2 minutes. So it was brilliant, to see that. but then it's just that one bit where they just all step off and there's a mistake of a free kick, and then that's it. That's all she needs, and she's going to score a goal. And the fact that both their strikers scored goals is really galling, because our defence has been really good up until this point, and we don't have a striker to score a goal. It's so frustrating. So yeah, I don't know. I just it was the needless, like you say, needless challenge really that gives the ball away and gives them the opportunity.
I think that the thing with that free kick, well, like I said, I think Rosa basically was having real trouble making a mark on the game.
Yeah,
she's sort of in the left-hand side of midfield, and so basically, Kiko had an absolute. Kiko. It's really quite unusual to have the player of the match on the losing side, but Kiko was awarded player of the match. But basically, Rosa was up against Lynn Wilms and Noel Merritts, so she wasn't getting any space, very little joy, no time with the ball. Whereas Kiko, no offence to the England squad member Lucy Parker, had her and 18-year-old Rachel Maltby. And Rachel Maltby looked good coming forward, but she didn't look that great against Kiko going backwards. So I think, that was just, I think Rosa was just getting frustrated. And she just, it was just a stupid foul that she got booked for. But I think again, I think Claire mentioned it, but I can only hope, I hope Helen isn't injured, but I can only hope that the reason she wasn't included was because of some sort of knock or something, because Rachel Daly, with the exception of Bunny Shaw, Rachel Daly is the best header of the ball in the WSL.
Yep.
So why you wouldn't have your 6-foot-tall Irish lighthouse up against her? Because she's basically, the ball comes in. It's a good cross from Lucia Kendall. We don't like Lucia Kendall on this podcast, do we?
We don't dislike her. We just
no offense, Lucia.
We're ambivalent towards.
Yeah. But no, it's not. It's a good cross. It's not like world beating. But Rachel Daly's up against Maisie and Rosa, neither of whom are famous for being great in the air. So I don't know why, one of the central defenders isn't on her, but B, why Caitlin Hayes isn't on the pitch to deal with her, because I think the physical side that Manu was doing on the ground, I think Caitlin can handle as well. But Caitlin is probably the best defender in the air in the WSL, or certainly up there. And I think she would have got a much better challenge, maybe even beat Daly to the ball. So that was a weird one with me, really. I think you'd look at you're going up to Aston Villa. You think Rachel Daly's probably going to play. If Rachel Daly's going to play, you need someone who's going to challenge her in the air, and that's Caitlin Hayes. So I don't know why she wasn't on the field.
Yeah, exactly. And I think I'm going to come back to you, Ben, for their second goal. But you're going to hear from me very similar thoughts about the second goal as the first goal, i.e., the first goal. How do you let one of the best aerial players in the league, probably one of the top 10 in the world, have essentially a free header? Like she wasn't. It wasn't like three players went up for the ball and she came down for it. She got a good flick on it. She put it towards the goal. Goes past Baggers. It's in the net. It wasn't like she had to really scrap for it or really beat anyone. It was a decent free kick. Daly makes her way towards the ball, flicks it on, and it's a goal. And it, just blink of an eye, little bit of a naive free kick to give away, because apart from anything else, they hit the bar from a free kick. In the first game. So although it was probably a bit wide for Wilms to hit, they should have been aware of the fact that this is not a team you want to give a load of free kicks to around the box, certainly not unnecessary ones. So there's part one. And, as I say, I'll throw it back to you, Ben, but for the second one, as much as you don't let Rachel Daly have a header, you don't let Kirsty Hansen have a free shot from outside the box. So Ben, you carry on that one.
It was one of those ones where we're still watching replays of Rachel Daly's header, and then suddenly, hang on, quick, cut back to the game. But she just, I think the team is sort of still out of shape, still got its heads down after conceding an annoying goal, and then they play across our defence. She's standing there in absolutely acres of space, picks her spot, wallop. you know, simplest goal, but
Yeah.
really, where was everybody?
There literally was 3 defenders 10 feet away from her. Not one of them closed her down.
It reminded me a lot of one of the goals we had against Arsenal last year.
Was it Marnham's one?
Where Monham everyone just backed away from her, whatever. She just stood there on the edge of the box with like it was one of those things where they'd get a sort of thing around there to make sure everyone was far back for it. It was like she was taking a free kick and just wallop top left hand corner sort of thing. A bit like Danny Welbeck yesterday, actually.
Yeah, I thought like Baltimore's goal against us as well, where she had too much time to basically just pick it. You know, only the last game we played effectively. We gave Baltimore the opportunity to put it in the top corner, and she flaming well did. So 2 games in a row, we've let players who are known for having a good, long shot on them. I mean, I had a look, and basically, Kirsty Hansen scored 6 goals this season. None of them have been inside 10 yards, and I think 3 of them have been from over 16 yards. So this is not a player who loiters around the 6-yard box tapping them in. She scored her goals and is Aston Villa's top goal scorer by being in that area on the edge of the box, maybe just outside, maybe just inside, but then creating goals and being a good finisher of the ball, good striker of the ball to get it past the goalkeeper. So it just felt like if you're undone by something that comes out of the blue, like you could almost argue that they were undone by the press and them not noticing Sonoda, and yes, they're going to be frustrated they conceded it, but it did come a bit out of the blue, whereas the goals that we conceded were goals that if you'd have said, Aston Villa are going to score 2 goals, I probably would have had good money on Kirsty Hansen from range and Daly with a header.
Yeah.
So exactly. I think, Aby, would you agree that's kind of the frustration, is that it kind of felt so predictable?
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. And Claire's absolutely right. Hansen's in acres of space. And not only are we not very good at taking set pieces, it seems this season, we're pretty rubbish at defending against them. But yeah, it's just the space we're giving to people. We say that in almost every game is why did insert player of the week have so much space allowed? Even when we've not lost the game, we are giving people too much space against us. Yeah. And is that coming back to what I was saying earlier about the formation and going forward, and that people aren't sure what their assignment is? I don't know.
I think all the games that stand out to me over the last season or so, we have been the first to the ball. The press has been hard. We've worked our butts off everything, each of those games to make sure every opposition player didn't get time on the ball. We just shut them down and we got rewards for it. But we just can't seem to do that on a weekly basis. It's like I can't work out whether we're just tired and exhausted because the effort we put into the previous game, or there's some sort of we're playing a different team this week, so we don't need to do that. But I think actually we probably do. I think if we do that every single game, because we were doing it in the first half against Aston Villa and we were winning. We did it in the first half against Manchester City and we were all over them. We did it to Arsenal last season. We did it to Everton last season, to Chelsea last season. When we do it, it works. We come off better for it, but we just can't sustain it on a weekly basis. Or even sometimes just to get through an entire game. We can't do it for the whole game. So is that fitness levels? Is it personnel? Is it rotation of positioning of the squad, like Aby said? What is it that stops us from doing that for the whole game? Because we have done it. We did it against Arsenal for the whole game. We did it against Chelsea. We did it against Everton last season for the whole game. We can do it. So that's why it's so frustrating that we don't do it, because it's clearly a tactic that works for us.
Yeah, it feels like we have more success. And then this is probably like the most blatantly obvious thing to say, but the more successful we are with the press and the results that come from that, like with Arsenal, where we go, I think, did we go 2-0 up before they came got one back, or did we even go 3? I can't quite remember.
I can't remember now.
It was a blur of goals. It was all too. I was in a daze the whole time. But it's almost like the more success we have, the more we feel we can continue to do it. Sometimes it feels like we do it for a while, maybe we get a result, or maybe it's still 0-0 or whatever, and then it becomes, okay, well, what do we do now? Where what it almost should be is, well, let's just keep doing what we're doing and it will pay dividends in the end. But I think, like we've spoken about before, not having that focal point striker means sometimes it's almost like having it's like a almost like having a pencil with no lead in it, sort of thing. Like it still exists as a pencil. We still exist as a team. We can still press as a team. But if you win the ball back and you look round you and there's no one there, what can you do? What's the what's the end goal of that? The whole point of winning the ball high and stuff like that is to then immediately put them under pressure, and try and score a goal. But if you've not got that person there who's going to score you that goal, or that person in the box. I mean, we put a couple of crosses into Fran Kirby yesterday, who thank goodness Fuka Sonoda was on the pitch, because otherwise I'm pretty sure Fran is our smallest player. And she did win one header, actually. Good for her. But I sort of thought, is that what we've come to now? We're having to sort of cross it into Fran Kirby. Like that doesn't seem, something's gone wrong there when we're trying to do that. Something that's gone to like, we're desperate. Let's just try anything. Let's just get it.
I think that's exactly it, isn't it? The fact that we put Caitlin on at the last knock-ins. We just bought an attacking player, and she's sitting on the bench, and she didn't come on. And we could still have put an extra. We still had a substitute to use. If she didn't come on, we brought Caitlin Hayes to play up front. I mean, I said to you, is Caitlin playing up front? Because you saw her positioning, and you're just like, no, I can't be seeing that. And that cannot be what I'm looking at. Like she's just wandered there or something and has forgotten to run back, surely. But no, she was playing up front.
Yeah, she's a bit of a Hail Mary, isn't she, really?
Absolutely. But I mean, how bad is our squad if we're playing Hail Marys like that at Villa?
I think, again, the issue with the stats-wise, I mean, we had more possession than them, more passes, blah, 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 blah. We had 34 touches in their box. And from that, we had 10 shots. They had 15 passes in our box and 8 shots. So I don't know if there's a touches in box to chances ratio, but they would get basically every second touch in our box was a shot from them, whereas every sort of fourth or whatever was from us.
Yeah.
And again, I mean there were 4 shots on target in the game. 3 of them went in. And the other one was that one from Nadine, which is a bit of a, she's got a clear sight of goal and then just lobs it into the arms of D'Angelo. So there's, I mean, again, it's, I think, obviously we are still riven with injuries. A lot of our creative talent is injured. I don't know what Carla is doing at the moment, because I'm looking at Carla and thinking, she's all we've got. So, why not? Just she comes on with like 15, 20 minutes to go. It's not enough time to have an impact, to come into the middle of a game like that, where it's all getting frantic and everyone's just. I mean, it did really get headless chickeny for quite a while. I think the last 10 minutes or so was quite good, and we almost forced a goal. But she just, you can't just chuck a striker on with like 15 minutes to go and expect them to do something. No. So, again, it's that thing about with the League Cup games where we sort of, we play our sort of academy side and then bring on the stars if we needed them. It's like, well, why not bring on the stars and blow them away, and then you can bring the academy side. It's the same with, if Carla's still only got, half an hour in her legs, I'm sure she played 90 at Arsenal, didn't she? Which is a bigger pitch than Villa Park. But if she still hasn't got 90 minutes in her legs, then put her on at the start, because she's all we've got. She is the striker that we've got. So why not? It just doesn't make sense to me, really. I don't normally criticise Dario's selections actually, but there was a bit of a head scratcher this weekend actually. Unless it is just injuries and managed minutes and that kind of stuff again.
I mean, I mean, it was a strange kind of. I think team pick. Anyway, I think there was a couple in there. We were all a bit like, oh, that's interesting. Like you say, Hayes not playing, Sonoda was in from the start. You're like, interesting. And I think me and Abby were saying, well, you never know. This might actually be the thing that makes it kind of like it works because they're not expecting it. It's something different. And it did for a little while. Like you say, I think Sonoda had a great game. I think Venegas had a great game. But I think everybody else was a little bit on and off and just in and out. And but
also, where was Rachel playing?
Well,
because she was over here 1 minute and then she was playing down here. And then as substitutions happened.
Again, I think, the substitutions were weird.
Positions.
Yeah, the substitutions were weird because I think she came on for Rosa, I think, was it? I can't remember now. She came on for Rosa, but then Charlie went off, so she switched and went into Charlie's position. But then we needed a goal, so she was attacking down with Kiko, and it was like everybody at that point just went, oh, we need to do something, so I'll just get the ball and run and go for it. And there was no cohesion, there was no plan at that point of what are we doing on the pitch here. It was just 11 players just running around. Just, I have no idea what at some points. It was very strange. And yet the stats would say that we played pretty well. So, because in pockets we did. In pockets of it, we did play quite well. But
I think sometimes our stats are a bit massaged because I think we play well in not unimportant areas. Does that make sense? I think where we're comfortable is the areas where you're not going to get. You might as well be comfortable because you're not going to score a goal, or And I think that's part of the problem is there's quite often not enough risk taking. There's so many times where they'll go forward with the ball, see a player ahead of them, and turn around and go back to the defender. Yeah. I mean, then you get the opposite problem, which is as the game went on, you were seeing players go forward the ball, see the player ahead of them, turn around and think, well, I can't give it back. So they'd hoof a ball across the field to no one and give the ball back to the opposition straight away for a throw-in.
Yeah.
Like, how good would our stats be if we could actually pass? We've got like an 83% pass accuracy. If we were actually a really good passing team, we could probably get like 90%. Because our passing is so profligate sometimes. It's unbelievable.
But it just goes around in circles.
Never met each other.
Yeah. It just goes around in circles. And like you say, I mean, we've seen it week after week after week now. We're playing Charlie in defence when she's not a central defender. And I get it when we were, had a few injuries or whatever, you need to fill people in and you put your best option in. But I don't see it, like I say, unless Caitlin Hayes has a knock, how she sits on the bench and Charlie plays central defence. I just don't get it. And because Charlie, for a player that actually her instincts are to run down the wing and, cause them hassle, she doesn't do that when she's a defender. She gets halfway down, stops, and is almost like, oh my God, I'm at the centre line. I can't go past. I need to pass it. And she'll turn around and pass it backwards. And you're just like, there's no urgency in this team. There's nobody moving. There's nobody making space. There's nobody going, give me the ball. And if they do say, give me the ball, they're not heard or they're ignored.
That's what I mean. There's not enough risk taking. No. There's not enough. You can see the players look up at like the halfway line. They've got 5 players ahead of them who are all just stood next to an Aston Villa player. And you're like, who's running? Who's going up? The one time I noticed it, because I was basically screaming that at one point, like, move, come on, like, move, just move around, like, just do something, like, that they're not expecting. And actually, I think it was maybe like 85th minute or something. Kiko had been hugging the touchline the whole time, and I've been begging her to sort of make a few runs inwards. She made a run in. And then what happened was there was actually quite a good crossfield ball. I can't remember who played it. It was probably Maisie or someone like that. But what happened was because Kiko ran up, in and up, she took the defender with her, which meant the crossfield ball went to Rachel on the touchline, completely devoid of any Aston Villa players anywhere near her. And she put a cross in. Now, that's what you're trying to do, right?
Yeah.
That's what you're trying to develop free space. You're trying to find the open player. You're trying to get your own players time on the ball.
Yeah.
But all too often it was like, just static, just so static. Oh, I'm going to run over here. Well, the Aston Villa player just follows you.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to zig when they zag. That's how you get opportunities. And all too often, a player would like go, oh, I'll stand a bit over here, and then the Villa player would go, oh, they've gone over there. I'll go over there too. And it was just. I don't know whether it's. I think it's a general thing. It's an overall thing. I don't think there's necessarily one specific sort of reason why that's happening. Obviously, a part of it is not having that focal point striker. We do not have a striker. Carla maybe, but we've got to see that. She's played less than 20 professional games.
I mean, she's a kid, isn't she? You can't put all that
kid,
pressure on academy players and say,
Exactly.
You go out and solve the problem for us. It's negligent of the club, for me, honest, to start the season the way they did. And I get it that maybe they had a player lined up and maybe that all fell through last minute. But where's your backup plan? Where's the experienced player backup plan that you could have gone to and said, oh, can you come now? To leave us in this position where we've just had the best season we've ever had, we should be pushing on. We should be showing teams that we are ambitious enough for that top 4 spot. And instead, Spurs are doing it. Spurs are out there kicking butt and buying all the best players they can get. And we're just sitting there, we're just, as Brighton fans, we're just watching tumbleweed.
And we've really got we don't have and haven't had for a long time, like an on-the-shoulder striker, a player who's basically watching the offside trap all the time to get in behind. We haven't had a player like that for a long time. Sometimes you would get that a little bit with Turland, depending on how far we were able to go up the pitch. Sometimes it was just a long ball up to her and she would, nudge them off the ball or whatever, and that became very predictable as time wore on. But we lack that. We lack the Olsen, we lack the Tamberg, 2 goals scored virtually identical, where a player playing along the back defensive line gets their foot on the ball and scores because they're on the edge of where our defenders are and they get to the ball first. Then you've got other types of crosses. We equally lack that kind of aerial threat. We've got players who can sort of fight for it in the air, but we don't have like a Bunny Shaw. We don't have a Sophie Roman Haug. We don't have, Manchester City score their first goal against us because they basically put a ball in the box, and if Bunny Shaw's anywhere near it, she wins that header. So I think that's my kind of thing is we don't, like I say, it's almost like having a pencil with no lead. It's like you can't. Balls into the box high don't work because we don't have tall players. Balls into the box low don't work because we don't have players, breaking the offside trap, nipping ahead of defenders and stuff like that. We're getting all these goals scored against us and we can't score these goals in response because we don't have anyone to do it. And equally, even if we do have people to do it, there are times when you think, I'm not sure we're going to put them in the right positions. This is one of the things I think, we will talk about our new signing potentially in the second half. But, this is one of my concerns is, you're bringing in a player who's scored a lot of goals, granted, fantastic. That's great. She scored a lot of goals as like a second striker, like a wide forward. I don't know who she is getting tap-ins and stuff and passes across and stuff from. Because she had, I think, is it Sevic next to her, her former club? We're talking about Tvetten, obviously, if you're unaware, who I think scored as many or very nearly as many goals as she did. Yeah, and they basically were like a really good dynamic duo. Well, at the moment, we've got, I don't want to say we've got Robin, but we've got we've got Batman or Robin, and it would be beneficial if we had the other half as well. I'm not saying Sevic, but we need someone else who's going to give her those opportunities, because otherwise what's going to happen is she's going to come in, everyone's going to go, well, she scored 18 goals in the Danish league, the Norwegian league, why isn't she scoring for us? Well, it's a totally different situation. It's totally different players. It's a totally different squad.
On the Batman and Robin thing, sort of dragging it back to Aston Villa for a moment, obviously, I mean, you know, Kiko and Maddie were amazing against Leicester, and I think, you know, they've been very good together all season. But they're, you know, and again, I mean, Kiko was doing Kiko and Maddie was doing Maddie, but they weren't doing Kiko and Maddie.
No,
that's the thing with, you know, with Leicester. One of them would have the ball and the other one would be running past them. Because, I mean, there is no. I don't know if there's any sort of Velcro-ness of boot stats out there, but nobody holds the ball like Maddie Haley.
Oh, it's
and it just comes to her and she just brings it in. And, you know, there's like 4 or 5. It's like there's I think it's a meme, but it was from a Simpsons episode where Barney Gumble is looking after some kids, and he's just walking through the sort of the creche or whatever, and all these kids are hanging on him. You know, it's you know. She's got like 15 players trying to kick her and get the ball off her, and she's not.
I think Maddie is our Olivia Smith, isn't she? She's the one that if
she gets up,
if we're going to get a player that's going to get kicked about, it's going to be Maddie.
Yeah. She doesn't pretend that she's injured all the time.
No, she doesn't do that.
But yeah, they weren't sort of playing off each other like they have been doing. Again, I think Kiko was playing wider than she has done. With, you know, she again getting a lot of success with it, but that meant she was quite a long way away from Maddie a lot of the time. So we, you know, even the partnership that we have got up front wasn't really firing yesterday at all. They played, but both of them in sort of in isolation, both played really well. But because they were so far away from each other,
sort of connectivity,
together.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It should only be 1 or 2 players that we need. That just augments, you know, because we've got a lot of good players. They don't become bad players overnight. You know, we've seen a lot of these players, you know, for multiple seasons now. We know like Maddie isn't a bad player. We know Kiko has got pace and she can get into the box and stuff like that. But it's putting the right people in the right position. And like you say, there was obviously kind of a bit of a plan to have Kiko out wide and put her on the side where we felt we could get at their defense, and actually it worked really well. The problem was that when Kiko would burst forward, she's looking for someone in the box, and if that's Maddie, she had 3-4 players on her, you know, and equally strong as nails as she is, you know, someone like Anna Patton, also very strong, also taller than Maddie. Like you're not coming up against sort of, you know, like 5'2", you know, 3 stone soaking wet defenders. You know, they have dealt with players like Maddie and stuff before, so you need to give her some help. But it was just, there was, like you say, it was very disjointed. I think the word was, there were players who did really well in isolation, and at times there were nice bits of movement, but it was like it would always come up against a roadblock, and sometimes that roadblock was Villa, and sometimes that roadblock was their own, you know, themselves essentially. You know, which made
we seem to have done a lot better really with balls over the top and letting people like Kiko run onto it. Do you know what I mean? Because that's something she is good at. But it is like you say, if she's been given the job of running down the wing, you've got to get her to then bring it in and have a go. And a lot of the times, by the time she's made that decision and she's moved inside, they've caught up with her and they're blocking that way forward. And then there's no one to pass it to. So it's a double whammy loss, and it's just kick it and hope. But it just feels like we just hit, like you say, a roadblock. We've got nowhere to go with it once we get 3/4 of the way up the pitch.
Yeah. And, you know, I think obviously that result puts us in 8th now.
Yeah,
we're still only I think a point or 2 behind 6th, so I think we still are, you know, we're still very much middle of the pack. But if we'd have won, you know, ifs, buts and maybes, of course, if we'd have won, we would have been 6th, and I think probably a point or 2 clear. Certainly of Villa, we would have been a few points clear of Villa, and a couple above London City, who of course we went.
I think that's the thing. I mean, at half time yesterday, we were sort of virtually on 17 points.
Yeah.
Villa was still
honestly, the mood was very happy in the stadium amongst the Brighton supporters.
And I mean, that was when, because again, I mean, Tottenham, what did Tottenham do? Tottenham drew, didn't they?
Yeah.
And Man United drew at Arsenal, and Tottenham, did Tottenham win?
Tottenham won, own goal.
Yeah, and Arsenal, Arsenal and Man United only got a point each, and Tottenham. So we would have been 6 points behind Arsenal. So we would have been looking up. And I don't think we're not really looking down, because below us is Leicester. We're 5 points ahead.
Yeah.
None of those, unless we have an absolute nightmare for the rest of the season, none of those are going to catch us. So we're not. I don't think we're going to finish any worse than 8th. But had we won, I mean, we still would have been dodgy. If London City had won, they would have gone back above us, and that kind of thing. But we would have been looking upwards at Tottenham and Arsenal and Man United, and going, maybe we could get 5th again, or maybe even 4th if a couple of them slip up. But now we're really just thinking, hope we can overtake Villa again. I think that's we're 8 points behind Man U now, and so that's not gonna. I don't think that's gonna happen.
It's the same thing, because now we go to Everton. If we lose against Everton, we are really cutting ourselves adrift of not finishing the top 6. We're not anywhere near it if we lose at Everton. It's a must-win game now, and then we've got LCL who are going to come and try and do something, because they probably have about 6 more players on their belt by the time of them. So
they were rubbish yesterday. They were terrible.
They were terrible, yeah. But
collectively and individually, actually, there were a lot of players.
But that doesn't, we've played Liverpool and they were terrible and we couldn't beat them.
True.
We played LCL and they're terrible and we couldn't, we just about beat them. We're not a team that can sit here and go, oh yeah, but they're terrible. So we're terrible. Right. At times, we are terrible.
Yeah.
And that's the truth of it. As much as we love our players and we love our team, we are terrible at times, and we are no better than these teams that are below us or just above us. Points are proof of it. Results prove it. It doesn't matter how good we can be for 10 minutes. If we can't get to the end of the game with those points, it doesn't matter. And that's the problem we're struggling with this season, is getting points on the board.
Yeah, and we're only saying it because we care. I do, I can't. I find it difficult to lurch from one side to the other, kind of be like, wow, we could finish 5th, and then it's like, oh, we might get relegated. It's like the actual truth lies somewhere in the middle, sort of thing. And I'm a little bit similar with like transfers and stuff. I mean, obviously, when we got Frank Kirby, that was kind of, that blew everyone out of the water. But, we've had a lot of transfers in, a lot of transfers out over the last few years, and not all of them have been a success, even though, we like to look at them and say, oh, they've got upside and stuff like that. And I think we have to be a little bit careful. I mean, it depends who. I think we're going to get a striker, because a Tibetan isn't really a striker. And I know Dario said we need a couple more forwards. So to me, she is the other forward to supplement the striker, because if you can get a striker who can score 10, 12 goals, and then she can score 8 to 10 goals, then that's what you need effectively. But I hope that it's not kind of, the fan base doesn't go, right, it's on you then. Because that's not really fair. She's been playing in a lower quality league. That will happen. Yeah, but that's what I mean. I think almost it would benefit her if we got another player in quite quickly. Because at the moment it's like, you're our saviour, and she's probably a bit like, oh, hang on a minute. I didn't realise I was kind of coming in as the Messiah, But yeah, I think all that is, we'll talk about more in the second half. That's a very sensible signing. We need more attackers. It will also give more flexibility for us to play players elsewhere, or not have to force them into positions, not have to say to Rosa, sometimes you're in the middle, sometimes you're out left, sometimes, not have to play Rachel McLaughlin at left wing and things like that. So just having another body, that in theory can add something to the squad, and hopefully, will be a kind of a starter for us, long term. Is good news, because I definitely think there is something to be said for, it's great to have players who can play in multiple positions, but there's a reason why Caitlin isn't a striker. There's a reason why Rachel isn't a left winger. Yes, they can technically play there. Yes, exactly. Yeah. But that's not where they're best. That's not where they're best utilized. That's not where they necessarily understand where they should be at this time or that time or whatever it is. and that can be very underrated. I think a lot of people think, oh, well, if you can play left back, you can play right back. It's completely different. It's completely different. You're using a different foot for everything.
It's handy when you do have in a game, somebody your player gets injured and you have to bring somebody on or move somebody in a position just to get out, whatever. But you can't be looking at your squad going, well, we've got 10 players who can play multiple positions, so we're covered. No, you're not.
Exactly.
No, you're not.
You haven't got. Yeah, you've got lots of.
You need to have 20 of your players who are that's their positions and they play those positions really well, and then you can have 5 who maybe can add cover here, there, and everywhere if they need to. You see it occasionally. A goalkeeper gets injured and they've used the sub and they have to put an on-field player on to go in goal. But you wouldn't say, but we've got a 4th goalie there, would you? You wouldn't say the defender is a great extra goalie. Of course not. And it's the same with attacking players. If you don't have an attacking proper striker with the experience of this league as well, to be able to come in and just hit the ground running, because that's what we need now, is somebody who can hit the ground running, doesn't need to settle in, just boom and go. We're just going to struggle. And then what happens at the end of the season? The players that we might have bought at the end of the season, all these hundreds that are out of contract that will be looking for a good club to go to, going to look at us and go, now I'll go London City. I'll go Spurs. I can go anywhere. I'm not going
Villa at this point.
You just drop down the table like you don't care. You didn't even have a striker for half the season.
I mean, I think it's just been confirmed that they have signed Orion Jean-Francois for just over 500,000.
500,000.
That's a statement. That's a statement.
Absolutely.
That's a French international. And apart from I think she's a good player, and I think she'll do well at Villa. And I think as much as you can predict that a player will do well, she's obviously got the pedigree. Chelsea didn't buy her for no reason. It's just that such is Chelsea's want, that they tend to just stockpile loads of really good players in every position and then just sift through them. I mean, that's how we ended up with Mylice, of course. But just to the other Aston Villa players, they'll be thinking, yeah, we're doing something here. We're building something here. This is not. This is not last year's Villa. This is not, it's probably going back to Villa from a few years ago when they finished. Did they finish 4th or 4th? I think they might have snuck into 4th.
Basically where we sat last season. When last season started and we'd signed Frank Kirby and we were looking and going, wow, they actually mean it. What they say, they mean they want to go for 4th.
Yeah.
And then we get to the end of the season, we start this season, and they've started really well because they've got a better goalkeeper in, they've got better defenders in. You're like, oh, we're doing it. And then nothing.
Yeah.
Literally nothing. Even though they almost promised it at the fan forum that someone was coming in, it was just nothing.
Yeah. And like I say, that's the thing now. Villa are a more attractive team. They've got a better chance perhaps than us now at getting more points as we go forward, depending on what we can do. Yeah. But I would say that if we don't get if Tvetten is like our only signing or whatever, then I'm pretty sure we'll be worst of the middle group, because I can see what the other two are doing, and I feel like they'll grind out enough wins, with the players that they're adding and stuff, that we will struggle to match that the way we're kind of playing at the moment. And I just think something needs to give us a shot in the arm, and I think bringing in Tvetten was obviously the start of that, but not a lot of people are going to have heard of her. So for the generalized fan base, people will be thinking, in the nice possible way, who?
So what?
So it's not a shot in the arm it might be for us who kind of watch football from abroad or watch international football, stuff like that, or we look at her goals and stuff. You can look on YouTube and all that sort of thing. But in terms of like a big morale boost to the club, that's not it. That can't be it, because that is not enough. It's not something has to be done to make a sea change at this point.
But also, we are at the moment at a net gain of 0, because we've sent a player out and we've got a player in. Okay, slightly different positions. But even before we did that, we were 3, if not 4 players down. You know, if you look back to the very beginning of the season, we've got an academy player registered on our squad purely, really, just to sort of tick the boxes for homegrown.
Yeah.
So that's one person we need to find before we've even started. And yes, that's probably because something went down. And apologies for the dogs trying to input their opinions in the background.
With you.
Eating their peanut butter.
But then Bex has gone down with quite a significant injury. That's when we should have really started looking, but we've not. Then Michelle, who was hailed as our saviour, has gone down with a season-ending injury. And then, you know, at the end of the Villa game, one of the fans went and spoke to Dario, who said, "Oh yeah, Aisha's probably going to be out for the rest of the season." And you're sort of thinking, hold on, there's 3 players there that are injured, and we are not looking at anything. Not only does that not really fill me with warm, fluffy feelings for the rest of the season, but also, what does that say to the current players? What does that say to players coming in? And I can see that not only will we get to the point where, regardless of how beautiful our training facility is, that people are going to look at us and go, well, not only are people going to look at us and go, oh, not sure if I want to go to Brighton. Our current players are going to be like, do I want to stay here if they're not going to bring a full squad in and they're going to play me out of position? If you've got someone like Charlie, like Rachel, and so on, who are going to say, well, I could stay here, or I could go to XYZ club, even if it's a drop down, and play my proper position and really put some good tape out there, particularly for those who are in their international, rotation. You know,
I think
I'm really quite worried about the state of the squad at the moment. Not the individual pieces, but just the sheer number of players that Dario has at his fingertips to make a squad.
I think we're not looking. I mean, I think, you know, we've only signed one. Obviously, a lot of players. Yeah, Tottenham have been announced. Tottenham were announcing players before the transfer window, weren't they? Because they signed Galpset basically as soon as the Norwegian season finished. So you know, I think, you know, obviously they are you know, they were trying in the summer and they are trying to get one now. And I think there's a danger of, you know, something must be done. This is something, so this must be done about transfer sometimes. And again, I think we were saying before, you don't want to, you know, go out and get, you know, trying to think of a sort of mid-table striker in the. I can't remember. Anyway, whatever. You don't want to go out and get a mid-table striker or get the best you can get from the National League, because you need somebody and put them on a really long contract, and then find out that, you know, that Bunny Shaw's available in the summer and she would have come and she really wanted to come and she likes our training facilities, but we've got no room for her now because we signed this other player. So, but I think, you know, as Duncan said, I think, you know, there has to be somebody on the way. They have, you know, they are looking, they are negotiating. But I mean, the problem is for Brighton and Hove Albion is that you say that to most people around the world. Well, there's certain sort of hotspots like Japan we're very big in because of Kiko, because of Karen Matoma and Kiko. But basically, you say Brighton and Hove Albion to anybody in the world, they go, mm-hmm. But if you say Man United, you say Tottenham Hotspur, you say Arsenal, Chelsea, Aston Villa, people want to play for them. That's, you know, the apparently possible reason why we missed out on Tinker Thunberg is because she's a Tottenham fan. You know, as soon as Elizabeth Turland was basically on anybody's radar, she couldn't wait to be a Man United player because she's a Man United fan. Same with Maya Letitia. So we're sort of almost playing, you know, with one arm tied behind our back in the transfer market, because we don't have, you know, we think we're a great club. You know, it's you know, fantastic history. You know, look at our trophy cabinet. Oh, there's nothing in it. We've never won anything. So, you know, so we haven't got this name that can attract people. So
is that the worry, though? Isn't that the worry that we're hopeful of being this top 4 club, but Spurs are out there, like you say, the last 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, they must have been negotiating these signings, and players were saying, yes, I'll come and sign, I'll come and play for you.
Yeah, well, because it's a historic.
So we must have been doing the same, but nobody's saying yes.
Well, I mean,
you have to ask yourself.
I think it's a bit early to say nobody's saying yes.
No, but we haven't had any. We weren't announcing people in November and saying this person's joining us in January, like Spurs were with Gausset and their other players. So you kind of like, what is the reason why they're saying no to Brighton? Is it because we don't have the prestige, or is it because we're not offering the wages and the contracts? Like, what is the reason that we can't do what Spurs have done?
I think the thing is,
that's my question for them.
You have to have a differential.
We went after those players.
Yeah.
You know, you look at Gausset, you think, well, we've got Gausset. Maybe they're not. Maybe she's better than our Gausets, but we've got a Gausset. We don't need another Gausset. You know, I
don't mean going after the players that Spurs have signed, but what I'm saying is there must be players out there that would fit our.
Oh yeah, but
why have we not?
The only ones you could get were the Scandi leagues, because they're the only ones whose season have finished. Everyone else has got pretty much the same transfer window as us. So you couldn't, you can't go round. I mean, the transfer window has been open a week, hasn't it, or something? So until a week ago, we couldn't be talking to Beth England, for instance, because we're not allowed to, because you can't talk to people outside the transfer window. So I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm hopeful.
I think there's a couple of things. I mean, why we had to wait a week for Tvetten, that strikes me as we had to get Jory out first, which doesn't make me hopeful that we're going to do anything with our squad, which I think we should be doing. You only got to look at sports around the world. You need to get creative with the players that you're allowed to put on the pitch. If someone can't play, or they're only going to play the last few games of the season, I'm sorry, they shouldn't be on the squad, on the roster list. You also shouldn't be putting players on the roster list who don't need to be on the roster list. We shouldn't be having to fill in with players from the youth team just simply to make up our homegrown quota. That smacks me as a bit amateurish, to be honest with you. I think the big thing, and I agree with you about the gravitas to a certain extent, Ben. I think the difficulty is you've got London City, who have got even less gravitas than Brighton.
Even more of that,
and that's the difference, right?
That's what I'm saying.
Differentiator. That's what I'm saying.
They've also got Michelle Kang, who can say, "Hey, Leon, can we have one of your players?" And they go,
"Yeah,
obviously, because you're
possibly, but I don't know that. I don't know that's a massive factor for a signing player. In fact, if anything, that would worry me, because I'd be thinking they're going to replace me in 6 months with someone from Leon. My thing is Brighton. If that's the reason why people are turning down Brighton, is they're going, well, you're not a Man United. I'd probably sign for you, but I want this sort of wages. If London City is saying yes and we're saying no, well, why are we surprised that London City are above us? Well, if Aston Villa are willing to pay £500,000 for a player and we're not, why are we surprised that Aston Villa are ahead of us? I think the problem is we feel like a little bit as a fan base that we've been sold a bill of goods. We've been told we're going to push for fourth. Then we got Tony Bloom saying, oh, yeah, well, we said fourth, but then Man United came up after that. And then London City have got loads of money, haven't they? And then now a lot of Brighton supporters are going, yeah, and Spurs just spent a lot of money and Aston Villa just spent a lot of money. So what should it say on our wall? We aim to be 8th.
Or 4th if it doesn't cost anything.
Yeah, and that's the issue, right? I think if we were just coasting along middle of the table, we had a few good players and we make a few changes all the time and stuff like this, I think most of us would be comfortable. Like, I'd love to see a lot of our youngsters get more opportunities, and I'd be okay with that if we were kind of saying, look, our aim is to kind of play good football and all this sort of stuff. And
I think that's where I am. That's the problem.
But that's the thing. That's not what the club are telling us. The club are telling us we're in for players like Chloe Kelly. We're building a new stadium, and it's like there's only so many times you can be told something before you start to think, am I being played a bit here?
Yeah.
Am I being?
It just sounds bullshit.
Something don't ring true with this. Yeah. And I think that is the issue, personally, is that if we had just kind of said, like, this is where we are, there's other clubs that are going to spend more money, but we're going to get as good a coach as we can. We're going to play our youngsters, hopefully from time to time we'll challenge, we'll have a new stadium and it'll all be lovely. Then we'd probably be quite pleased with that. But we've been told this thing about fourth for a long time. That feels like it's being climbed down from a little bit. We've got a stadium that's probably nearly been talked about for nigh on 3 years, which we don't even know where it is or what and you just start to think, like, where is this going? Like, what's the end goal of all this? Because at the moment, it's quite difficult to be a fan of Brighton, like the women's team. It's quite challenging, I think, especially, you know, like we're trying to introduce new people into the game and stuff like that. It's only going to be like unusual people. Like, I know when I picked an NFL team, I picked one of the worst ones because I didn't want to be a glory hunter. We're only going to get those people.
And you're still not.
I'm still not. No, exactly. You know, we're only going to get those people because if you live in Kent or North Sussex and you see what London City are doing, that's way more exciting. If you live nearish London, you're going to see Arsenal and you're going to think that's more exciting. So literally what you're left with kind of down here is the people who support Brighton because they either live down here, they want to support women's football and they're the closest club, or they're just Brighton fans. You know, and that is a really small pool compared to what the other teams are able to drive to bring in. And this is where we're not going to talk about it because we need to wrap up this part quite soon. But there was a rumor floating around about Fran Kirby going to Juventus. And I think some people were sort of saying, well, she's coming to the end of her career. Will we really miss her? The answer is, on the pitch, she is potentially replaceable. I know some people think she isn't. Some people think she is. I'm kind of in between. I think she's a very, very good player. I think she's very important to us at the moment. But are there players out there who would be able to do more? Yes, but they're going to cost you money. The issue at hand is she is the one player that people talk about when they talk about Brighton. I think she is entering that conversation because she's so damn good. But traditionally, you're looking at English players, Lionesses. The one player that everyone's heard of that Brighton have is Fran Kirby. If you sell her to Juventus, BBC are not going to... They very rarely sort of care to come and interview players and stuff anyway at Brighton. They're going to give even less of a monkeys if there's no Fran Kirby. And I think from that perspective, we'd be idiots to sell her to Juventus. And I don't think she'll go anyway. But if we want to really build that profile, if we want to fill a 10,000-seater stadium, if we want to attract the world's best players, then we can't be eighth. We can't have a stadium that no one's sure if it exists or not. Aby, credit for Schrodinger's stadium. You know, we can't have no striker because we couldn't get one on the last day of the transfer window. You can't be doing these things. It has to be better. And I think it's important to, you know, not kind of... We don't want to be too negative. There are positives, but equally it's important to hold people to the fire and ask questions because it's not going well at the moment. You know, and I hope we smash Everton. We beat London City. You know, I forget who we've got in the league after that, but I hoped before we went on this little run that we were going to get 9 or 12 points out of this, you know, this run. And I think I said if we do, we put ourselves back in a shot with 5th, maybe even 4th. But I also said if we don't and we end up with like 3 points, we're going to end up right down at the bottom there, flirting with that bottom bit. No, I don't think we're there yet, you know, but like I say, if Everton win, I think they go to 12 points. We'd be stuck on 14 or 15 or whatever it is we've got. It starts getting tight. So, you know, there's reasons for optimism. We try to be hopeful, but equally, I think when things are going wrong and it is frustrating, I think it's right to vocalize that, whilst also acknowledging that, of course, we're doing this because we're talking about these things because we want to get better. We don't want to talk about bad things.
No, I think that's a really important point, Duncan. When I used to manage people and this, that, and the other, one of the best people that I've ever worked with, I used to say to her, I only get at you because I care and because I want you to be the best version of you. I said, the moment I stop getting on you, that's when you worry, because that's when I've given up on you. And I think we're the same here. We love this team. We love this club. We want them to be the best. We want to go on holiday abroad, assuming we have passports, which I don't. But we want to go on holiday abroad and go, I support Brighton Hove Albion, and they go, oh yes, we've heard of them. We want little kids going on The Apprentice saying, oh yeah, Brighton Hove Albion won the women's championship, Champions League. That's what we want. And if it sometimes comes across that we're sort of getting at the club, it's because we did get up at 5 o'clock yesterday morning and drive 3.5 hours to the frozen north. I don't care if it's Midlands, north to me.
It's north
it was
to us, yeah.
It was very frozen.
It was freezing.
And to watch 90 minutes of football with our friends. We had a lovely time, and drove back, and then sort of collapsed in a heap on the sofa. But we do that because we love the club. We talk about these things because we love the club and we want them to do better. And it's just sort of frustrating. I think because the club is so tight-lipped about things, nothing comes out. Villa fans and Tottenham fans and other fans are going, we might have such and such a person, coming in. And, they get that excitement because Brighton is so tight-lipped. You don't hear anything. I mean, there are lots of government departments that could learn from this club about how to keep a secret.
Yeah.
But even when it does come out, though, there's no big fanfare. It's no big excitement. It's just a reel that comes out and goes, "Oh, look, we signed a new player."
Why wasn't she at the press conference?
Here's a picture of him in the new kit. Here's a picture of him doing some keepy-uppies. Here's a picture of a bit of them telling you their name, and that's it. That is it. Nothing else. No press conference, no fanfare, no getting to ask questions, no introduction at the games to the fans, no 2 minutes come on at the end to just have a little bit of a, get it out, get your game under your belt and say hello to the fans or anything. Nothing. And you're just like, do you care? That's how I feel. I just feel like, does this club even care about its women's team? Because it really does feel like they don't.
Yeah. I think that there's elements of that, shall we say? I think there's elements of that. I think they all care in their own way, but I think that a lot of the time, like the team, it's very disjointed. And what they all need to do is get on the same page and all be singing from the same hymn sheet. Because sometimes it feels like people are getting pulled in all directions, and that's just the fans. Never mind, the staff and everyone like that. So, we. It boils down to we want the team to do well. We want the club to do well. And if the team and the club do well, then we will do well, ultimately. So that's what we're aiming for, is to have a lovely, happy fan base that we can grow, and spread the word. And, because we are worth supporting if we can get on that journey. We need to feel like part of it, and that's something that will come in time. And I think it is improving. Hopefully it will go further, as we progress. And, perhaps over the summer, we get that star player we can all rally round. And, hopefully we get them in January. But if we don't, then hopefully we get one or two in the summer and we can all rally around them. And maybe we'll get some news on the stadium again. That would be a big boost to a lot of fans, is just to have that kind of thing, to look forward to, within a certain time frame. And, yeah, exactly. It's tough when you haven't got anything up ahead to kind of that you feel like you're almost looking forward to. And I think that's why transfers are important. Not necessarily quantity, but if you get a new player, it's something for the fans to go.
Just lifts everybody, doesn't it?
Yeah.
To have, if you get that big name,
what if they're really good?
And it makes the other teams around you stand up and take notice and go, "Oh, they were serious. Like, they do mean what they said."
Yeah.
Whereas at the moment, I think most clubs, especially the clubs in and around us, they're just turning up, going, "Yeah, we can have them. We can do them." Whereas they shouldn't. We were Fortress Broadfield last year.
We need to flip the script. We need that impetus, and I think we can do it. We can do it, but we just need a little nudge in the right direction somehow, some way. So I think we'll wrap up part one of the video portion of our podcast. I'd like to thank, obviously, my co-hosts and Joe in the background, pressing all the right buttons in all the right places. Part 2 will be available as before on audio, so look out later in the week for the entire episode, which you'll be able to listen to in the usual places, Spotify, Apple, etc. And of course, as always, just go to SheGulls.com. You can find everything you need there, except the match recap, because I haven't finished writing it yet. But other than that, head over there and enjoy, and you'll hear from us later in the week. Goodbye.